was certainly an element of making my grandfather proud and honouring him by taking part in the award that has been so much of his life's work. And I definitely hope that I have made him proud.
What if I told you that Queen Elizabeth's most powerful message wasn't from a speech or public event, but from a private will? In this will, she chose to pass something very personal to a young woman rather than a senior royal, the future king, or even the wife of her son. That young woman is Lady Louise Windsor, and she inherited a cottage on the Balmoral estate, which was Queen Elizabeth's favorite retreat. It's where she went to escape and where she passed away in September 2022. Recent news shows that Prince William took action to ensure this inheritance. Interestingly, Camilla, the Queen consort, was not involved in this decision at all. Today, we will discuss what happened, why it matters, and what Queen Elizabeth's choice reveals about the royal family. This is more than just an inheritance story. It gives us a glimpse into the dynamics of one of the world's most famous families. Let's dive into it. What Lady Louise actually inherited and why it's a much bigger deal than it sounds. Let's start with the basics. Before we can understand why Louise's inheritance is significant, we need to know about Balmoral. Balmoral Castle is in Aberdeenshire, Scotland, surrounded by 50,000 acres of wilderness, moorland, and forests. It is more than just a place for the British monarchy. It serves as a refuge. Every summer, the royal family goes there to escape the public eye and the duties of royal life. At Balmoral, they can be a family. Here's an important detail many people overlook. Balmoral is not owned by the state. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert bought it privately in 1852 with their own money, and it has remained in the monarch's personal ownership ever since. This means that Queen Elizabeth owned Balmoral personally and could leave it or parts of it to anyone she wanted. Louise inherited a cottage within the Balmoral grounds. Although the name of the cottage hasn't been publicly confirmed, the estate has several residences, including Craigawwan Lodge, which Queen Elizabeth often used, and smaller homes for family and guests. Getting one of these properties is more than just receiving a gift. It gives you a special place in the royal family's most private setting. Consider this. You wouldn't give a piece of your most cherished home to someone unless they were very important to you. Queen Elizabeth had many grandchildren and great-grandchildren as well as senior royals around her. She even had a new queen consort. Yet, she chose Louise. A royal's private will shows their true feelings. It isn't influenced by politics or public image. It reveals their honest intentions. This is where the story begins, and it only gets more interesting from here. Who is Lady Louise Windsor and why the Queen loved her so deeply? If you're not familiar with the royal family, you might not know much about Lady Louise. She has kept a low profile, which is one reason why Queen Elizabeth appreciated her. Louise Alice. Elizabeth Mary Mountbatten Windsor was born on November 8, 2003, 8 weeks early. Her birth was an emergency delivery via cesarean section at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey. Due to complications, royal aides confirmed her birth hours later, once they knew she and her mother Sophie were both safe. Louise weighed just 4 pounds at birth, and within her first year she had surgery for esotropia, a condition where one eye turns inward. This was not a typical fairy tale royal entrance. Her parents are Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, and Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. Edward is King Charles's youngest brother. He and Sophie are seen as the most down-to-earth and private among the royal siblings, focusing more on family than on public appearances. Louise grew up in this environment. When she had the choice to use her royal title and be styled as HRH Princess Louise, she chose to be Lady Louise instead. She wanted to live as much as possible like a normal person. She does not have official social media accounts or seek media attention. She studies, rides horses, and drives carriages, living a life that is quite ordinary for a royal. Prince Philip loved her for this. The Duke of Edinburgh was known to be gruff and private, but he had a special bond with Louise. He personally taught her how to drive a carriage, a hobby he enjoyed in his later years. After Philip passed away in April 2021, many people were touched by the sight of 17-year-old Louise, dressed in black, driving his carriage during his tribute. She did this to honor him because he had taught her and to continue his passion. Louise drove his carriage so that it wouldn't be left empty. This moment captured who she is. Queen Elizabeth saw all of this. She noticed how Louise supported Philip and maintained her privacy and dignity in a family where those qualities were often lacking. Elizabeth watched her grow into a young woman who reflected the values she had always upheld. It's no surprise that Elizabeth left her something special. Prince William steps in, what it means, and why he did it. Prince William, the Prince of Wales and future King of England, took a surprising step to help ensure Louise's inheritance was honored. This involvement requires some explanation because it's not immediately clear why William needed to take action. After Queen Elizabeth died, the Balmoral estate went to King Charles, who now owns it. Any property on that estate falls under his control. For Louise to inherit the cottage, the family's senior members must support it. William didn't just give passive approval. Sources say he actively worked to ensure that Louise's inheritance was respected and that everything went smoothly. In a family known for complicated relationships and lack of trust, William's support for Louise is significant. So why did William prioritize this? The answer makes sense when you think about it. He has seen how young royals can feel unsupported. He watched his brother Harry go from a beloved family member to living in California and talking about feeling abandoned. Whether you agree with Harry's choices or not, William clearly learned something from this situation. He seems to believe that those who follow royal norms by staying private and serving the family without seeking attention deserve the institution's support. Louise is following this path. She isn't writing memoirs or giving interviews. She is focusing on her studies and being there for Philip when it mattered. By supporting her, William sends a message that the institution recognizes and honors her commitment. In any family, when someone steps in to protect a quieter member, it shows their character. William's actions here reflect the kind of king he hopes to be. This involvement also suggests who he values in his inner circle. Notably, Camilla is not part of it. This brings us to the more sensitive part of the story. Camilla left out the complicated truth of Queen Elizabeth's feelings. Let's clarify something right away. Camilla Parker B.S., now Queen Camilla, holds significant power. As the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, she stands beside King Charles at every state event. She represents the royal family, has access to all official royal residences, and is involved in the monarchy's activities. When we say Camilla was left out of the inheritance story, we mean it in a deeper sense. We are talking about Queen Elizabeth's personal feelings. She hasn't shared her inner thoughts publicly, only leaving behind a will and a lifetime of careful choices. To understand what Queen Elizabeth's decision meant, we need to look at the complicated history behind it. Charles and Camilla's relationship started in the early 1970s, before Charles married Diana Spencer in 1981. This relationship continued during his marriage to Diana, something both Charles and Camilla later confirmed. The impact of that affair on Diana and the royal family was huge. Diana's well-known 1995 interview, in which she mentioned there were 3 people in her marriage, was watched by over 20 million viewers in the UK. The aftermath changed how people viewed Charles, Camilla, and the monarchy. Queen Elizabeth valued loyalty. She witnessed Diana's pain and her son's very public marriage troubles. Elizabeth also saw Camilla's role in that situation. Despite Elizabeth's public statements, her private feelings were different. When Charles married Camilla in a civil ceremony on April 9, 2005, Queen Elizabeth did not attend. The official reason was that she attended a reception for them later that day at Windsor Castle. However, people noticed that the Queen, the mother, was absent from her son's wedding. Then there was the title. Initially, when Charles became king, there was a plan to refer to Camilla as Princess Consort. This lesser title lacked historical precedent and was intended to soften public reaction to the idea of making Camilla queen. After private discussions reportedly between Elizabeth and Charles, they decided that Camilla would be queen consort. Elizabeth agreed, but the announcement was made quietly during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations in February 2022, along with a statement reaffirming Elizabeth's succession wishes. A monarch who fully supported Camilla would not have needed to negotiate these terms. The negotiations tell us the truth, so when Elizabeth's will stated that a cherished item from her personal estate would go to Louise, not to Camilla or other senior royals, we shouldn't be surprised. This is Queen Elizabeth expressing herself privately and honestly what royal wills actually tell us, reading between the legal lines. Before we continue, it's important to address something directly, because credibility matters in this kind of story. In the United Kingdom, royal wills are sealed and not available to the public. In 2021, the High Court decided that Prince Philip's will would stay private for at least 90 years after his death. The same rule applies to Queen Elizabeth's will. Senior royals can request that their wills be sealed to protect the royal family's privacy, and these requests are usually approved. So, how do we know what's in it? The simple answer is we don't know everything. What we do know comes from reliable royal reporting by sources close to the family who talked to journalists anonymously, and from Queen Elizabeth's own public behavior, which reflected her private values. Royal historians have pointed out that Elizabeth expressed her feelings about people through actions rather than words. This included who she invited to Balmoral, who she was photographed with, who she assigned public roles to, and who she excluded from her warmth. In her final years, she consistently included Edward and Sophie's family, while Harry and Meghan became less involved. Camilla had a mix of acceptance and distance, officially recognized, but not fully embraced. Sophie, Louisa's mother, became one of Elizabeth's closest female allies toward the end of her life. After Harry and Meghan stepped back in 2020, Sophie and Edward assumed more public roles and often accompanied Elizabeth to events that other senior royals would have attended. Elizabeth showed her appreciation by giving Sophie a personal brooch that had belonged to her, and royal commentators saw this as a sign of deep affection. Louise was a part of that family. She supported Philip, drove his carriage, and didn't sell stories or give interviews to gain attention. In Elizabeth's world, which valued discretion, duty, and loyalty, Louise was almost the ideal grandchild. The will remained sealed, but Elizabeth spent 70 years showing us her values. We just needed to pay attention. Interpreting royal actions as a reflection of private feelings is not just guesswork, it's the only way the royal family communicates. Once you learn this language, the message becomes clear. The bigger picture, a royal power shift nobody is naming clearly. Let's take a step back. The story about a cottage and an inheritance is a small part of something much bigger happening in the British monarchy. Seeing this larger picture helps clarify everything we discussed. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer after undergoing prostate treatment. The palace did not say what type of cancer he has. While he continues to perform duties, his schedule is being closely managed, and he has had noticeable breaks from public appearances during his treatment. As a result, William, the Prince of Wales and heir, has stepped up significantly. He is not just preparing for his future role. He is handling many of the king's duties that Charles cannot perform. Essentially, William is already doing much of the king's job while Charles is still alive. William is also making clear choices about who he trusts and includes in his inner circle. Edward and Sophie, the new Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, are taking on more responsibilities. They are being positioned as key figures in the monarchy's future. Their daughter Louise is also being included in this trusted circle. In contrast, other family members are being sidelined. Prince Andrew lost his royal duties after his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and a problematic BBC interview. He no longer has any royal role. Prince Harry lives in California and has shared details of his family in his memoir. He does not appear to have a way back into royal life. These individuals are not part of William's focus. The monarchy is distancing itself from them. Camilla, despite being the official queen, is not fully integrated into the close family that William is building. She is Charles's partner, but is not seen as part of the family circle that Elizabeth created and that William is taking over. Every monarchy has a formal structure and an emotional structure that can differ. Right now, the emotional structure of the British royal family is changing, and Louise is a part of this change. The Balmoral Cottage is more than just a property. It represents a position in a group that is becoming more exclusive. Queen Elizabeth made this change by pulling out the chair for Louise. Where this goes from here, Louise, William, Camilla, and the future of the crown. Lady Louise Windsor is 21 years old and studying English at the University of St. Andrews, where William and Kate met. She can decide how to shape her future as a member of the royal family. Her choice is important. She can maintain her privacy and live out of the public eye as some other family members do, or she can take on royal duties and help support the monarchy as it changes under King Charles. With Andrew and Harry stepping back, the royal family needs more members who can take on roles, and William would welcome her help. William will likely become king, though it's unclear when. Those he trusts will be by his side, while some relationships may grow more distant. Camilla's situation is complex as she moves from queen consort to queen dowager when William becomes king. If she doesn't have a close relationship with him, this change could feel lonely for her. Balmoral is facing financial challenges with Charles cutting costs. However, the cottage Queen Elizabeth left to Louise is safe. representing their strong bond. Queen Elizabeth's reign encompassed major events and personal difficulties, shaping the message of love and values in her will. She gave Louise a cottage in Scotland, showing what was important to her. What do you think Queen Elizabeth's lasting message to the royal family was? Share your thoughts and subscribe for more insights into palace life.